the biggest asset in women's sports. The idea that they did not have somebody in this position it's asinine, it's ridiculous, it's insulting to the fan base. It shows a lack of professionalism by what's supposed to be a professional basketball team, an organization. It's shocking to me. It is shocking. But
hold on a second. The Indiana Fever just did something that's making the entire WNBA world pause and ask one simple question. Where were you 9 months ago? Because right now, as we speak, the franchise that's home to Caitlin Clark, the player who single-handedly elevated women's basketball to heights we've never seen before, just posted a job listing for Senior Director of Player Health and Performance. Yeah, you heard that right. A position that oversees medical staff, injury prevention, rehabilitation, athletic trainers, nutritionists, the whole 9 yards. And they're
NBA season. This is great news. Cannot wait to see her back on the floor. Now, there's also a lot of us Caitlin Clark fans who are triggered by the statements that Stephanie White made on the Fever Insider podcast, where she said that the team is building around Kelsey Mitchell, and we feel like Caitlin Clark needs to demand a trade. You know, like it's a lot. It's a lot. Caitlin Clark needs to get out of there. We're going to get into this footage of Caitlin Clark back working out, back training. This is great. We got a lot more to get into. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment.
It now. In October, after one of the most injury-riddled, heartbreaking seasons in recent memory, after watching their superstar rookie go down not once, not twice, but multiple times throughout the year, after seeing half their roster limp off the court with season-ending injuries. The timing here isn't just bad, it's damning. And WNBA fans are not staying quiet about this one. Let's rewind for a moment and talk about what actually went down this past season, because if you weren't paying attention, you need to understand just how catastrophic this was for Indiana. This wasn't your typical injury bug that hits a team here and there. This was a full...
The issue is, how the hell did you not already have somebody doing this? And why didn't you bring somebody on during the season? The whole team turned into a MASH unit.
Blown medical disaster that derailed what should have been a magical season. And it all centered around one person, Caitlin Clark, the player who sold out arenas, the player who brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA, the player who was supposed to be the future, not just of the Fever, but of the entire league. She came into this season with expectations through the roof, and for a while, she was delivering. The rookie was balling out, putting up numbers that had people comparing her to legends, and the Fever were actually competitive for the first time in years. Fans were showing up in droves. Merchandise was flying off the shelves. Everything seemed to be clicking, and then the injuries started piling up. First, it was a quad injury early in the season. Nothing too serious, or so they said. Clark played through it because that's what competitors do. But then came another quad issue. Different location.
Stephanie White has some very disturbing things to say. We all know Stephanie White's a bonehead, and for whatever reason, she and the Fever organization or whoever feels like they should be building the team around Kelsey Mitchell. We've heard plenty of times, Kelsey Mitchell, she is our number one priority last year. She'll be our number one priority.
Same problem. Her body was trying to tell her something. And apparently nobody in that organization was listening closely enough. She pushed through that one too, because when you're Caitlin Clark and the entire franchise is riding on your shoulders, you don't have the luxury of sitting out unless you absolutely have to. Then came the groin injury, a minor one at first. Again, she tried to gut it out. But on July 15th, everything changed. That minor groin issue became a serious one, the kind that makes you wince just thinking about it. The kind that requires real, dedicated medical attention and a proper recovery plan. And just when it seemed like she might be getting back on track, disaster struck.
The whole team turned into a MASH unit. It's crazy. It is crazy. It's no secret the Indiana Fever were dealt a brutal hand when it came to injuries they dealt with during the 2025 WNBA regular season. The most notable of these is regarding star Caitlin Clark, who experienced several soft tissue injuries during her sophomore WNBA campaign. She suffered 2 relatively minor quad injuries that kept her sidelined for a couple of weeks.
Again, August 7th, while rehabbing from that groin injury, she sprained her ankle. And just like that, her season was over. Done. The franchise player, the Rookie of the Year favorite, the woman who had brought hope back to Indiana, was shut down. Gone before the season even reached its climax. But here's the thing that should make your blood boil. Caitlin Clark wasn't the only one. Not even close. This was a team-wide catastrophe that exposed something fundamentally broken in how the Indiana Fever were operating. Sophie Cunningham, one of their key veterans, went down with a season-ending injury. Sydney Colson, another crucial piece, same story. Season over. Ari McDonald, done for the year. Chloe Bibby, finished. And all of these, they happened in the final 2 months of the season.
Needs to move on. This is just not gonna work. This is not gonna work. You know what I mean? This is the quote from Stephanie White. I want to continue to build around her. She is absolutely the number one priority. Now, she said she was the number one priority last year. She'll be the number one priority this year. So, being that Kelsey Mitchell is your number one priority, I think Caitlin.
That's 4 players for season-ending injuries in the span of 8 weeks. How does that even happen? How does a professional sports organization watch player after player drop like flies and not immediately sound the alarm that something is seriously wrong? But wait, there's more. Damaris Dantes suffered a concussion that kept her out of the playoffs entirely. And in their final playoff game, Kelsey Mitchell went down with a leg injury. Count them up. That's 7 significant injuries to key rotation players in one season. 7. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't the basketball gods being cruel. This was a systemic failure at the organizational level. So now, let's talk about this job post
in the season, then a minor groin injury that kept her out for another couple of weeks, then suffered a more serious groin injury on July 15th. Let's not forget about the ankle. Oh, here we go. But that's not all. Clark sprained her ankle while rehabbing before an August 7 game, which delayed her return timeline to the point where the Fever felt like she didn't have enough time to properly recover and return to
that just went live on October 24th. The Indiana Fever, or more accurately, Pacers Sports and Entertainment, the parent company that owns both the NBA's Pacers and the WNBA's Fever, decided that now would be a good time to hire someone to run their medical and performance department. The position is called Senior Director of Player Health and Performance. And if you read through the job description, it's basically admitting everything that was missing this entire time. This person will oversee the entire medical and athletic performance operation. They'll manage sports performance coaches, athletic trainers, physical therapists, massage therapists, nutritionists, chiropractors, and a team of interns. They'll be responsible for creating individualized clinical treatment plans and developing rehabilitation strategies for players coming back from injury. In other words, all the things that should have been in place before Caitlin.
Players, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, and Chloe Bibby all suffered season-ending injuries in the final 2 or so months of the season. Damaris Dantes missed the playoffs because of concussion. It's still unclear where that concussion came from. The phantom concussion, nobody...
Clark ever stepped foot in a Fever uniform. The question that keeps echoing through social media, through fan forums, through every WNBA group chat right now is simple. Why didn't this position already exist? The Fever aren't some expansion franchise figuring things out for the first time. They've been in the league since 2000. They've won championships. They've had all-stars and Hall of Famers wear their uniform. And yet somehow, in the year 2025, they're just now realizing they need someone to actually oversee player health at a comprehensive level? That's not just an oversight. That's organizational negligence. And the timing makes it even worse. They watch their most valuable asset, the player who's supposed to carry this franchise for the next decade, break down physically over the course of a season, and only after it was too late did they decide to do something about it. But this isn't just about the Fever, and that's what makes this story so much bigger than one team's failures. This is about a pattern across the WNBA that exposes the resource gap between men's and women's professional basketball.
Amber Cox, I don't trust Kelly Crosskopf. I don't trust none of y'all. I don't trust none of y'all. I don't even want her working out at the damn facility over there. I'm hearing that the owner's son is not feeling y'all. If that's the case, you need to step in. You need to step in. Do y'all want Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White, or do y'all want Caitlin Clark? Let's get something clear here. Let's get things clear all the way around the board. How about that? Let's get this thing clear all the way around the board. Caitlin Clark is the reason people...
Let's be brutally honest here. The Indiana Pacers, the men's team that shares ownership with the Fever, has had a fully staffed, state-of-the-art medical and performance department for years. They've got everything. Multiple trainers, cutting-edge recovery technology, nutritionists, sports scientists, the works. Because in the NBA, that's standard. That's the baseline. Every team invests heavily in keeping their players healthy because those players are multi-million-dollar assets, and you protect your investments. But the Fever? They apparently didn't think the women needed that same level of care. And they're not alone. This is a league-wide issue that gets swept under the rug because it's not as flashy as talking about three-point records or playoff races. Think about the irony here for a second. The Fever's attendance exploded this year. They were selling out arenas because of Caitlin Clark. Merchandise sales went through the roof. The team was making more money than they had in years, possibly ever. Caitlin Clark became a household name, and she was directly responsible for bringing revenue into that organization and into the league as a whole. And what did the Fever give her in return? Apparently, not the medical infrastructure necessary to keep her on the court. They were cashing checks off her name while failing to provide her with the basic support structure that every professional athlete deserves. That's not just bad business, that's disrespectful. It's treating these women like they're not worth the investment, even as they prove time and time again that they absolutely are. Now, some teams in the WNBA do have their act together on this front. The Las Vegas Aces, for example, have invested heavily in player health and performance infrastructure. They've got comprehensive medical staffing, recovery facilities, and a real commitment to keeping their players in peak condition. And surprise, surprise, they've been one of the most successful franchises in recent years. Could there be a connection? Absolutely. When you treat your players like the elite athletes they are and give them the resources they need to perform and recover properly, they tend to stay healthier and play better. It's not rocket science. It's basic organizational competence. But for too many WNBA teams, including apparently the Fever, that competence has been sorely lacking. So, what does this mean moving forward for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever? Well, on one hand, at least they're addressing it now. Better late than never, right? If they hire the right person for this newly created position, someone with real expertise and a genuine commitment to player welfare, it could transform the franchise. The right director of player health and performance could implement proper injury prevention protocols, ensure players aren't being overworked, create individualized training and recovery plans, and establish a culture where player health is the absolute top priority. That would be huge. It could mean the difference between Caitlin Clark having a long, healthy Hall of Fame career or becoming another cautionary tale of what happens when talent meets poor organizational support. But fans have every right to be skeptical. This hire is essentially an admission that something was deeply wrong with how the Fever were operating. It's acknowledging that players suffered because the necessary infrastructure wasn't in place. And that raises an uncomfortable question that the organization needs to answer. How many of those 7 major injuries this season were preventable? How many of Caitlin Clark's setbacks could have been avoided if there had been someone in this exact role monitoring her workload, managing her recovery, and making sure she wasn't being pushed beyond what her body could handle? We'll never know for sure, but the fact that the question even exists is damning enough. Fever fans, the ones who've stuck with this team through the lean years and finally got to experience the joy of relevance again, They deserve answers. They deserve transparency about who gets hired for this position, what the timeline is for implementation, and what specific changes are going to be made to prevent another season like this one. Caitlin Clark fans, the millions of people who fell in love with her game and started following the WNBA because of her, they deserve to know that their favorite player is being protected and supported. And WNBA fans as a whole deserve to see the league take player safety seriously across every franchise, not just the ones who can afford it or the ones who finally figure it out after a disaster. This should be sparking a league-wide conversation right now. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert should be looking at the situation and asking tough questions about whether the WNBA needs to mandate minimum standards for medical staffing and player health infrastructure across all teams. Because if we're serious about growing this league, if we're serious about elevating women's basketball to the level it deserves, then we can't have franchises treating player health as an afterthought. We can't have situations where it takes a catastrophic injury season for a team to realize they need proper medical oversight. That's unacceptable in 2025. Caitlin Clark is 23 years old. Her entire career is ahead of her. She has the potential to be one of the greatest players the WNBA has ever seen. She's already proven she can fill arenas, move the needle on television ratings, and inspire a new generation of fans. But none of that matters if her body breaks down because the organization failed to protect her. The Fever need to understand that they're not just hiring someone to fill a position on an organizational chart. They're hiring someone who will quite literally determine whether their franchise player can have the career everyone knows she's capable of. That's the stakes here. That's what they're playing with. And here's the final word on all of this. Yes, it's good that the Indiana Fever are finally hiring a senior director of player health and performance. It's great that they're taking this seriously now. But let's be completely real for a moment. This position should have existed before Caitlin Clark ever put on a Fever jersey. It should have been in place years ago. The fact that it took watching 7 players go down with major injuries, including watching their franchise cornerstone's rookie season get derailed by a cascade of preventable physical breakdowns, for management to finally say, hey, maybe we need someone actually running our medical department, is absolutely unacceptable. This isn't visionary leadership. This is reactive damage control. And while it's better than doing nothing, it doesn't erase the fact that it shouldn't have come to this in the first place. So Fever management, if you're listening, here's what needs to happen. Hire the right person for this job, someone with a proven track record and genuine expertise. Give them the resources they actually need to do the job properly. Don't just create the position as a PR move and then underfund it. Invest in state-of-the-art facilities and equipment. Make player health the absolute cornerstone of your organizational philosophy. And most importantly, make sure this never happens again. Because WNBA fans are watching. Caitlin Clark fans are watching. And we won't forget how this season went down. The Fever have a chance now to make this right, to show that they've learned from their mistakes and that they're committed to doing better. The question is, will they actually follow through, or is this just another empty gesture? Time will tell. But one thing's for sure, the pressure is on, and the stakes have never been higher.